You are listening to or watching the Work Cultured podcast. Welcome back. With us today, we have Veronica Verhoff. Now, she has been the head of talent acquisition on a global scale for many different companies of all sizes and shapes. But over the last 7 years, she is the CEO and founder of Evolve Up, where she consults, she helps transform HR organizations. And so it's a different angle that we're going to be talking about our high-level topic of culture today, but it's going to be a really interesting one. So, hey, Veronica, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it, Jason.
Why don't you give us a high-level, who is Veronica? How did you end up in this current position, starting your own company in the world of HR?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you gave a good summary. I had the opportunity to start my career early on in my life where I was a basic recruiter. Started at an agency like a lot of folks did, ended up in corporate America, and corporate America gave me an opportunity to grow and scale. And as I did that, I landed at a company, VMware, where I started in recruiting, ended up in operations, ended up in global programs, global teams. Fast forward to 2025, I'm now leading an organization to help companies. I look at it from a global lens, taking my experience when I grew with companies. And at the same time, I've worked at startups. And so I have enterprise experience in startups, and startups are a different beast. One day you're leading talent acquisition. The next day you might be writing policy. You never know.
Right.
Startup, right? So it's very different. That gave me the opportunity to take startup and enterprise, put it together, and now Evolve Up is an HR operations consulting firm that we help transform HR orgs to be more efficient with hiring and to help them retain their employee population longer. So that's what it transformed into. So that's a little bit of my background.
Yeah. So just because, on the show, we always ask every guest the same first question. And even though you're kind of in a different type of role than the usual guest, that does not get you off the hook. So I need you to tell me about a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget.
I think if I dig back, I got feedback early in my career that transformed me as a leader. I was up for a promotion. I was already a leader. And this one question was asked to me across the table from a chief people officer at the time. And his question was, hey, if Veronica, if someone were able to describe you, how do you think that they would describe your brand and who you are? And I said, oh, that's an excellent question. I'm a hard worker and I hit my deadlines. I have deliverables and, the job will be done because of me and who I am and how I lead. And he's like, great. So who are you? And I just sat there across the table and he was like, that's what I'm trying to get to you is we know all of that about you and we can rely on you, but we need to know who you are. Up to that point in my career, I was already leading teams and managing teams, but one flawed mistake I was making was not slowing down. I thought always at that time it was about doing well, making sure my orgs did well. And then I got direct feedback that they wanted to know me and who I am and the person that I am, which hence culture, right?
Yeah.
They want to know the human of me, not what I can deliver and what I can do. And so I spent the better part of over a decade learning how to be more vulnerable, learning how to let people in, learning how to bring my whole self to work. And some of the things that are more common this day and age, but back then, it was just now coming. It was just now hitting that they wanted to bring your whole self to work. Now, today as a leader, I wouldn't make that same mistake that it's about deliverables, timelines, what we can achieve and what we can do in the ROI. That's how I started my career. But after getting the feedback, and I did not get the promotion, and that was the feedback, I spent a long time working on making sure I bring the human part of me to work.
Yeah. And this is before the famous Dr. Brene Brown TED Talk, right? That word vulnerability wasn't circulating the way it is today and has been for the last 5 to 10 years. interesting that they were looking for that, right? Like
Mhm.
part of me wants to push back and just be like, well, what kind of question is that if that person's not expecting it? But the other part of me is, well, we now know that without vulnerability in leadership, you miss a ton of the big culture ads of values and authenticity and connection and creating that sense of belonging. So yeah, they were ahead of their time, interestingly.
They were. It was a more mid-size level company at that time, but I think they were very interested in keeping the startup feel.
Mm-hmm.
And as a company gets big, sometimes they lose that startup feel of really the intimacy you can gain in a startup. And they were
Yeah.
trying to hold on to that.
Yeah. So now you are, I mean, for 7 years now, it's pretty much all you know now is working with other HR organizations
Mhm.
and helping improve. You're mostly on the systems, processes, software, right? So like you're not, culture is adjacent to what you're doing, but you're not directly in it. So
Mhm.
what can you say about that relationship? How much are you seeing culture? How much of the conversations you have with your clients are about that?
It's still really common because you still need the right people doing the right jobs in order for you to be efficient. So, as a consulting company that comes in and looks under the hood and says, what's inefficient? What technologies can you use leveraging AI to make you more efficient? What processes do you need to have in order to be more efficient? There's a people component to it. You still have to have the right people in these jobs in order to oversee the technology, in order to execute the process, in order to make sure everything's streamlined and running right. My firm can come in and advise all day long, but it's really important for our clients to be on board and for our clients to have the right culture of innovation and the right people to do the jobs that they need. So it comes up every
Mhm.
single engagement.
Yeah. Wow. And you're solving a lot of problems, whether that's the initial hiring process, the people, systems, and operations, empowering leaders and creating team dynamics. What would you say is like the biggest category that companies are struggling with and they engage you to help on?
Category. I think right now there's a buzzword that has hit the last 2 years, and that buzzword right now is like AI.
Mm,
And so a lot of the time they'll come wanting to know more about HR products within the AI technology, but things that come up regardless that's outside of this thing they're trying to learn about and they're trying to see how they can be more efficient is sometimes do I have the right people?
yeah.
And with these right people, how do I know if they're right or not? Because I might think they're right, or this leader might think they're right, but we got feedback that they might not be. And that's when we start having conversations on what are their values and what kind of behaviors they're looking for, and have they provided feedback for those behaviors for those types of individuals. So it might get into more of that component. But most of the time, because of where we sit, there's an operational problem. And so the theme across all of our clients is I have an operational problem, I have an inefficiency, and I need to fix it. Can you help?
And then what's the engagement look like? How do you come in and actually do the fixing?
Typically, I talk to whoever leads the department. Sometimes it's a CEO that taps me on the shoulder saying, I might need help. Let me introduce you to a CHRO or a CPO. Sometimes it's a CFO asking for that, and sometimes it's directly the CPO or the CHRO. Usually, they're coming because they already are aware of something. And so it's verifying what they're aware of and digging deeper because these executives, they don't have time to lift the hood. So it always starts with an evaluation of some sort. Inside that evaluation, we'll look at the talent journey from the time they attract it to how they retain.
Mhm.
And when we look at all of that, then we'll see where the bottlenecks are and we can tell them where the inefficiencies are very pointed. And they don't have to run a side project of their team. Their team can continue to focus on that, whatever their core jobs are. And after we come with data, then we ask them, what do you want to do? Here are some options. And then we take it from there. With the data set, we typically show them speed of things on which they could move, cost avoidancy of money that they're spending that they don't need to be spending, And then revenue. What can you generate from revenue? So those are the things we show them after evaluation.
And all tying back to essentially right people, right seats. Is that correct?
Well, it's all tying back to efficiency.
Okay.
And one of those components happen to be right people, right seats. So when we look at efficiency, there are times where maybe somebody, I'll do a specific example. Maybe a coordinator in your team is setting up manual interviews. It could be the right person, they're just doing the wrong things. So let's let technology do that, and let's let that coordinator do something more efficient and more effective in their role. So we've had clients up level the coordination team to not do manual work. We have a tool do that. And then those folks end up doing more strategic work.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense then. Yeah. So whatever the big pain point is, whether it's they, can't hire the right people or they can't retain them, or maybe they already have people, but they are in the wrong seat or whatever it is, you're uncovering the inefficiencies and improving on all that using the right systems. And one of the reasons I'm asking so many questions and trying to understand it is because you're working with much larger companies than what I usually work with, and so or much more sophisticated, not even larger, but just more sophisticated, right? Because I think back to the problems I had at my last company. We were over 2,000 employees by the end of it, but our sophistication levels were next to nothing. And I mean, maybe that is why people are bringing you in and you're helping them become sophisticated. Do you think that is, do you think you see a lot of companies come in that have they're like on the ground level and feeling like they're in the Stone Age?
Yes, we do. We do have people come to us that think they're in their Stone Age, but we also have people who didn't grow as they scaled, right? To your point.
Mm-hmm.
So the most recent client that we've signed on, they're very manual. They just don't have, and they should be. If you look at their maturity level, how long they've been around, how fast they grew, it's really hard to hire a bunch of people, make sure those people are the right people for that skill, and then you have to reevaluate. But then also you have to think about, I have to put systems in place. Who's going to do that? Because these people got hired here and this is the first time they've ever done this job. They would hire my company to come in and say, we haven't done this before. Can you help us do it? Then we have some clients that have gotten stuck in a date and they come to us. We know we're a little bit archaic in some of the things that we do, and they've referred to themselves in very funny ways. Like, you might think that we're a little bit behind, more dinosaur stage. We're not. We're aware. We just need help, right? And so a lot of the time our clients are aware. I'm just that helper that gets them from point A to point B. Either they need more hands, maybe they're not sophisticated enough, maybe they don't have enough experience. They're aware there's a problem and they might not know how to do it. We come in, we guide that, and they land where they want to land or better because we looked at it differently. So, but yes.
Yeah, that's so important. My last company when I joined was about 800 employees and everything was manual. And I'm talking pen and paper, 40-page, nothing online, 40-page papers that were copies of a copy with different fonts from page to page, right? I mean, just like things over the last 35 years that they had pieced together. And so applicants were filling out these 40 pages of crap, writing their name 32 times. And it was just, and I'm sitting there just going, how is no one even climb the ladder a little bit to say this is utterly ridiculous? And I bet you see that a lot, where it's just they've gotten into habits and then bad habits beget more bad habits, and nobody is thinking about it from that, eagle eye, like you're talking about. You're able to come in and see things from a different point of view because you're not in the business. You probably don't even care what they do as a business.
It's really funny you say that, because I was talking to someone. We'll usually go through personas of people and we'll have conversations with people about their jobs, and we'll figure out what they're doing that's manual so that we can get that off their plate. What we'll do if they're waiting for someone else to do something, because there's bottlenecks of just waiting time sometimes when you look at a process, and you're just losing money because people are waiting on that or waiting on this. And so there's a lot of waiting. So we look at all of this, and I usually ask this question: can you tell me, in order for you to be more productive, what do you need from us? And this one answer was so spot on. Veronica, I've been functioning like this for so many years that I literally don't know anything else but this. So you would probably be able to answer that way better than me. And I wish I could fly up and tell you these are all the things that I need to like go faster or to be better at my job. But I've been doing this for way too long. I just know how to do it.
Wow. Yep.
The honesty was so spot on. It was
Yeah.
just like, you can probably think of it way better than I can. This is how I do it. This is when I do it. This is why I do it. I can't think beyond that because this person did so many different things and honestly kept things moving that it was very manual and inefficient. But if you ask them to go do research on inefficiency, they'd probably figure out something. But for that day in that conversation, they couldn't think outside of what they did daily because they've just been doing it so much. Nobody's asked them recently.
Yeah. So, somebody told me that you're talking about the function and yeah, it does function, but it sucks. And somebody pointed out to me, and I wish I could remember who, that the word dysfunction is not DIS. It's not doesn't function. It's DYS, which I think the Greek means something like it's difficult or it's impaired. It's pain. It's functioning in pain, right? So it's not that it's not functioning. It's actually worse. It's doing so, and just like the most horrible, painful way. And I found that really fascinating because that makes me realize a lot more things are dysfunctional than we realize.
One of the things that we say when it's my short sentence, like, hey, Veronica, what do you do? I help HR dysfunction because they need help. And typically that's what it is. It's if you look at efficiencies and inefficiencies, it's just about an operational process or a tool or a lack of integration that's creating some type of dysfunction. And if we just make it functional with an integration or functional with a process or functional with a technology that has generative AI so that you don't have to manually create something, then it goes from dysfunctional to functional. So my summary is we help with HR dysfunction.
Yeah. Okay. You said AI, and I want to pry on you, and I want to see if you've seen this problem. I hate resumes. Okay. They're garbage. They're antiquated. I think they were invented in the 1950s and nothing has changed. And they've always been, in my view, pretty unreliable. 70% of people admit to lying on their resumes. That they're not great to begin with, but now in the last year or so, I mean, it's ChatGPT is actually who's writing almost every resume that comes across any system. So are you seeing that? And is it creating pain for your clients?
Yes, we are seeing it. And on the other side of that, we're able to take those resumes and match them to jobs. So if they're taking the job description, putting into ChatGPT, rewriting their resumes, it's going to match them. It's going to give them a higher algorithm.
Yeah.
The interview process, we can weed out people, right? So this is why the right people are still really important, because the goal of a lot of these folks is to get to the door and then they're going to sell themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get to the door and get it open, then you're going to get through an interview process. If these companies have the right interview processes, meaning good, solid questions, things that will measure quality for them, they have the right persona, they know what they're looking for, they're going to get weeded out. Now, AI is coming. It's here. It's been here. It's been here for a while. It's getting more sophisticated over time, and we'll see a lot more things happen. I honestly don't mind if someone sends me an AI generated resume. I actually applaud it because I'd rather you lean in than not. I do find it disheartening if you don't read what it writes, because you do have to edit it because it's not going to get it right. This is why people control technology. Technology doesn't control people. So if someone uses it, hopefully they've read it and then they edit it. Now there's a lot of people who are new to it. They're not reading what it says. They're throwing it on the resume, they're sending it, and they're getting caught inside these interview processes as something that can't be validated nor confirmed. If you just slow down, leverage ChatGPT, read it, edit it properly in a way that aligns with your background and still use its verbiage so that you can get through the machine learning on the applicant tracking system and still get that interview, that's the way that I would encourage to use it. But I'm seeing it often.
Yeah. I agree with everything you're saying in terms of why it's a good tool. But all the things you're saying are also why I hate it. Because how much how much hidden potential are we missing because people don't know what they are supposed to do to game that system,
Mhm.
right? Like, I, I do want to bring on people that are critical thinkers that can problem solve and figure out how to use AI, but they still might be very much lacking in, how to make it salesy enough and how to make sure it gets through the algorithms and the ATSs and all that kind of thing. And it's just really, I guess it's just sad because we're missing hidden potential, and you've got a lot of people out there probably with the right skills, experience, and the makeup of who they are, and they're just never getting through that system for whatever, stupid arbitrary reason.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of pressure on resume writing, right?
Yeah.
And people are aware of that. This has been around forever. And then when Chat GPT showed up, then it became a hack. Like, how can I
Yep.
get that? We used to hire professional writers.
Yep.
Now we don't necessarily have to, is the logic. We can now use technology instead of spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars, depending upon your level. You spend, the further you are in your career, if you're getting someone to help you with your resume, you're going to spend more. You're going to spend thousands versus hundreds, right? So instead of leveraging people who are experts in these markets to write your resume in a way that will turn heads and sell you properly, because it is a skill to be developed, now we're using a hack and trying to do this. So we're seeing all facets of it. Yeah, it is frustrating that there's so much weight on the resume, and there's in AI is creating this bottleneck a bit. I think it's going to iron out over time. The better we get at it, the better we get at measuring it, the better that we get at implementing it, the better people understand it and how to edit it and use it. I think we'll slow it down. But when it's released into the
Mm-hmm.
world, these last 2, 3 years or handful of years, yeah, I would say it's going to create inefficiencies. It
Yeah.
always does. It's a technology, right?
Yeah. That also makes me think about, so when we were young, and I don't know what your, like, high school job was like, but my first real job, my resume was basically like, yeah, I mean, I worked at the cash register at CC's Pizza, and then I went to college, right? Like, and that was totally okay. Like, I didn't have to be like, and then my CC's Pizza KPIs went from this to this. I mean, like, it's nonsense. I mean, right? And so getting an entry level job it was expected that your resume is nothing. Right?
Mhm.
It's not supposed to say anything other than I worked the cash register or I sold some clothes at Macy's, right? And that was okay. But it doesn't seem like this youngest current generation is actually getting by with that. It seems like these companies are looking for all of this beautiful verbiage and KPIs and numbers and results on resumes for people that are 20. And I'm curious if you're seeing that, and what the heck do we do? What do the companies do, and what are the entry level people doing?
It depends on the industry and the market. Some, yes, there's a little bit of higher of a bar. Others, not necessarily, because we have a skills gap across the United States on filling multiple roles in multiple industries. And because of that skills gap, people are forced to bend. And when they're forced to bend, they can fill those spots. And so I would say in some of the entry level positions, I had a client that would hire every year 200 new college grads right out of school.
Wow.
As long as they had that degree, they were willing to train them, right? Now, the problem with the generations that are coming in is, they want to make money, they want to make it fast, and rightfully so. Inflation, it's a pain, and things are expensive in the United States. And if we look over the last 5 years from what we were paying for groceries 5 years ago versus today, it makes sense. They need money, right? They're trying to get
Mm-hmm.
on their feet. So the retainment strategy is extremely difficult. So for those that will open up headcount, fill 200 plus positions a year of college grads, entry level positions, that's great. I also have observed, even more on the professional side, I have a past client that took off a degree to start opening up the job market. And now it's not a requirement. And it's literally trying to tap into the market and look for people who have the aptitude and the soft skills
Yeah.
that they can teach over time. So it depends on where that company is. I would agree with you that yes, there is a high expectation that is built year over year for the last 5, 10 years on a strong resume. And there are some industries that expect internships. They expect some form of experience. But I'm also seeing the other direction too.
Yeah. What kind of turnovers are you seeing in those types of scenarios? Bringing on 200 college grads or even 200 somebody who doesn't have a college degree. What kind of roles are you talking about those being filled for, and what kind of retention are they experiencing?
I think one that comes to mind is really in the like industrial engineering um kind of realm that we went through a whole bunch of conversations with them specifically. And really what we're seeing is kids want a chance. They want a chance, they'll take a job. And once they get the experience, it's really common they'll go somewhere to make more money. So
Sure.
companies have to really think through the timing of raises to start getting them higher inflation, like getting it up to a current standard. Because obviously, when you hire someone with very little experience, it's easier to pay a little bit lower. But eventually, a year, 2 years from now, they're going to get that experience and they're going to lift up their head and they're going to find out, okay, now who's going to pay me? Instead of losing that talent, ask yourself, these companies need to ask themselves, are we at the right benchmark for pay? Are we right at right benefits? Because these people have stages of life they want to go through.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be always taking entry level positions, and they want to be growing their careers. So just checking in those parameters. What I'm seeing is if a company doesn't do well, to answer your question, is yeah, if they're not looking at these variables as kids or college grads or entry level positions get experiences, they're going to invest and lose money because they're going to leave in 24 months. And you
Right.
don't want to leave in
They
24
got cheap labor for a time, and instead of just ponying up some more money to hold on to that person, they essentially threw it all down the drain. Like if you raise them $10,000 a year, that sounds like a lot of money, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than that person leaving and you have to replacing them, right?
That's exactly it. And if they time it right, and the way the companies that I've seen it do it well is to explain it ahead of the time.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what to expect the first year. If you continue to stay with us, you'll gain some experience. You'll have a performance review around this time. We're going to go over what's working, what's not. Here are our expectations. And then year two, this is what it should look like. And now, if these career mappings where someone can look through like a career development plan and they can see their future, they're going to retain them longer than not talking about it at all. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
companies who seem to not be doing well based off of the clients that we get that have higher attrition, a lot of these conversations aren't being had at all, or just not being conducted in a way that's giving that forward view that the employees can continue to progress.
Mm-hmm. The annual review, I just kind of had a thought there. That's pretty arbitrary, is it not? 12 months. Why 12 months? Like, I'm curious because we have younger generations coming in that are more instant gratification and, all the dopamine hits with their phones. Like, I wonder if a company would have success attracting more people and retaining them longer if they were like, oh yeah, forget 12 months, it's 9. Like, we are giving raises every 9 months you've been here, and just kind of see how something like that goes.
Yeah, I just threw out 12 months as an example, but
Well,
it's
but
all.
that's every company, right? It is your example, but it's every company out there does it.
Yeah, I mean, there should be ongoing conversations. The companies that do it well will have an ongoing conversation. And yes, there's budget align, annual budget. You have to have the money and shift it over. As long as that's explained that there's a whole budgeting process and it's not necessarily, you can't have this because you haven't earned it. It's just the new bucket of money hits here. It's like peanut
Mm-hmm.
butter. You can only spread it so far in a piece of bread before you need to get more to spread it on the next, right? It's kind of how
Sure.
it works. These companies have budgets, they have money, they have funding, they have to allocate it to different things. There's a people bucket. And just knowing that the reason why that's the case isn't because that person's not ready. It's just about the funding, right?
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a lot of clients who have succumbed to the whole like employees know that the only way to make money is to leave and come back?
do I? Oh, I've come across that. Yes, I've come across that. A lot have companies have figured out that that was the that's what has happened in the past. I'm not seeing it as much right now. It's not talked
That's
about
good.
as much. A lot of the time we're talking about inefficiencies and processes and products, right? People
Mm.
write seats. I have not talked a ton recently with my clients about boomerangs that leave
Okay.
and come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I still have friends in the corporate world that's like, well, if I'm ever going to make money here, I'm going to have to leave and get some other job and then come back and then they'll pay me what I'm worth. And that's super frustrating.
It's
Do you?
probably happening, you know, if
Yeah.
I was more heavily on like the full HR scale rather than
Yeah.
process and efficiencies and tools, I'd probably be talking about it more and more. But really, that was really common when I was working in corporate America, inside of HR and the
Hmm.
department. When I was at the site working inside the department, this was a common conversation that needed to be talked about and was talked about because there's usually a parameter on how much you can pay an internal employee. And that parameter isn't scaling as fast as if you hire someone external, and it doesn't bode well for internal versus external. So
Yeah.
people will leave and then get the experience, come back because they know the external person's getting a better raise
Hmm.
by just being new, and they want
Yeah.
to be new too. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was a common problem.
Yeah. It's super frustrating for those folks. Okay. So I want to see what sage wisdom you have for our audience, because usually we're talking purely about culture initiatives. What are your secrets? What are your challenges? That kind of a thing. But uh, you have the knowledge and expertise of systems and structures that a lot of our listeners, my past self included, don't have that sophistication. Uh, and probably because we either haven't gone high level to think about it, or we just assume I don't have the money for that. Do you have any sage wisdom for people in that position? They're not, 10,000 employee companies. They can't afford you, but you can give them some free advice here. What systems do they need? What's the big levers that they need to be pulling on to create better efficiency?
Yeah. We're actually launching a new division just for advisory work for the smaller companies for startups,
Hmm.
right? Startups and
Okay.
small businesses. A lot of our work has been in mid-market, 200 million typically in revenue and above, but the new line is simply helping people guide through this. I mean, they could be making 1 million and get advice for nothing compared to what people are getting for in mid-market. It's just a different kind of skill set. But when you're looking at everything, asking yourself what you need, basic to just move. Like day one that you start a company, do you need an applicant tracking system? No, you can pull an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet or whatever domain you're on, and you can start typing out your names. And if you're not hiring a lot, don't waste your dollars there. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
if your company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, maybe it's time to think through an HRIS system because you have hundreds of employees versus 5,
Hmm.
right? And if you're only hiring 5 times a year, don't invest on the front end, invest on the back end. And then as you invest, you're going to have to think through integration. You're going to have to pay people, start with a simple product to just pay. And then eventually you're going to want to integrate the payment system into the HCM on the HR side. And then that is going to work well together. Now, as you continue to scale 300, 400, 500, you're going to want an entire suite, a basic suite that speaks to each other. I wouldn't go buy the big products that are enterprise level. I would buy the ones that make sense and you can piecemeal it together. A lot of these companies now are releasing one large product that you can do an entire talent strategy to get people attracted. Then you have an a CRM for socialization, an applicant tracking system. Then you can do your onboarding after you hire, and then it's your HCM too. That's a lot of money. I would not spend money on all of that. I would start very basic. What can you use manual work for? Because it's not going to be a lot of time. And then when is it too much time? If you start getting to the hundreds, it's probably too much time looking at a basic product. And then with that basic product, when you purchase, just find out what does it integrate with so that you know how to integrate it when you get to phase 2.
Yeah. And what's the really inflated cost one that world pay or what
Mhm.
is no world something day work day?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Workday. It
Dude.
all these components. It has a finance side. It has
Yeah.
a HCM side. It has a ATS side. Enterprise level, that makes sense. They have revenue, they have resources, and it's also people to support the tool.
Hmm.
The smaller tools sometimes are more self-serve, and
Yeah.
you can implement it with one person versus a team of people. If you're going to
Yeah.
talk to a Workday, I would always we have clients that are on Workday. That's very common within the enterprise level, the larger mid-market, not the smaller mid-market.
Yeah.
For the larger mid-market, we always encourage people to make sure they have the Workday expertise inside their company before they go implement it, right? You need that because you need the support. And so if you're a small company and you're bringing up Workday, my first question to you would be, what are the gaps are you trying to solve and how did you get to
Yeah.
Workday? Because we can build out a scorecard for you very effectively to show you there are other products that are a fraction of the cost that for your size will be less amount of money and still get you where you need to go. And you can still scale for a good amount of time before you need a larger system. But yeah, Workday.
Yeah. And I kind of called them out on purpose, not because I mean, maybe they're great, but I remember looking at it and being really impressed. And then they showed me the quote. And I was like, go pound sand. Like, you guys are on crack. And I think back, if I would have known if I would have known Veronica, and I was like even willing to remotely entertain the cost of something like Workday, I could have brought you in, paid a fraction of that, and had just as much efficiency or more by the end of it. And so, yeah, I'm dogging them on purpose, and I'm also pitching you at the same time because I wish I would have had something like that.
One of my previous clients, I was helping on an engagement, and they built an innovation team. And this leader was talking to a very well-known provider, and they were about to buy like a $500,000 product. And I asked the guy, hey, what are you solving for? And he tells me what he's solving for. And it was honestly taking all of their internal population that's working on jobs for their clients, so projects, and being ready to flip them to another project as they roll off. And they needed this customized tool. And it was expensive, not because it was a product, it was because it was going to be customized. And I said, hey, can I show you a product that's like maybe 100,000 or less that could do just that? And it actually integrates with this. And so this is what you can do with it. And I showed him the multiple things he could do. And he was like, you're kidding. I'm like, do not get this customized. Do not build this yourself. Go buy a product, integrate it here, and save your company $500,000 for the ongoing, but I don't know your implementation costs, your customizations that you were going to do. I don't know how many multi-millions that was going to be, but he was just going to purchase a $500,000 product, right?
Goodness gracious. Yeah. I'm guessing you were a little less than $500,000.
What's that?
You were less than $500,000. Is that fair to say that he saved money with you?
Yes, you do actually. I'm a lot less, and it's interesting. What I ended up explaining to him when I went in there is how much he could save. And he's like, how did you know this? I was like, because I know the products that can do the same thing to where you don't have to buy the bigger ones until it's time. There's a time and a place for these bigger products or these customizations, but not all companies are there yet. And when you're there, go do it. It'll help you. But for today, they were 1,600, I think, at the time, 1,500 at the time. They just weren't there yet, right?
Yeah. Well, that really nicely brings us to the next segment, which is the shameless plug, right? Like, so why don't you tell us how to find you, or if you wanted to plug something other than your business, go for it. But time for a shameless plug, Veronica.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Veronica Verhoff. My company is Evolve Up. Evolve Up's website is evolveup.io. If you just want some free advice on, hey, here's my situation. There's some inefficiencies I have inside of HR. I would call it a dysfunction. You can give me a shout. We specialize in operations to help people figure out what to use leveraging AI. And then we offer some other services like maybe you need a recruiter or two because you just have too many heads that you can't keep up with and you need a recruiter to help you out for a little bit. So we also offer that too. But yeah, no, it was great. This was wonderful. Thanks for the plug. Shameless plug.
Yeah. Well, you're not done yet. We have a quick fire. All right. Okay. So we're going to end with a this or that. All right. So, football or volleyball?
Football.
Okay. That's the first one. That's an easy one. You're an Austinite, right? You live in Austin, Texas. So
I live in Austin, Texas. I'm a Texan for sure.
So then let's say spicy or mild? Just anything.
Mild.
Okay. Barbecue or Tex-Mex?
Tex-Mex.
Okay. If it's Tex-Mex, Chuy's or Taco Deli?
Oh, that's hard. Chuy's.
When it comes to restaurants, do you like to be quick, go sit, like fast food delivery type of thing, or do you like to sit down and enjoy a meal.
If I'm by myself, sit down and enjoy a meal. If I have all my luggage with me and the whole family, in and out, quick, fast.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. And then are you a country girl or a city girl?
City.
City. All right. Well, thank you for the quick fire ending. Thank you for the sage wisdom and the fun conversation. Veronica, this has been a pleasure having you on and having this great talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, Jason. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, and thank you for tuning in to the Work Culture podcast. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.